Hi, everybody. This is Steve Talizzi from xangati. I'm the Global VP of Global Marketing here at xangati, and I want to thank you all for attending our webinar entitled Avoiding the Hidden Pitfalls of VDI Deployments. I think we all know how important mobility and security has been in modern data centers, and VDI typically is one of the best ways for us to deploy those types of solutions. But as you go through those deployments, typically there are a number of gotchas as you move from the initial pilot stage all the way to full deployment. And today we're going to talk about some of those hidden pitfalls that we've seen with many of our clients, and then highlight one of our best customers, Sweat & Crawford. And I'm pleased to have with me today Travis Conley, who's the VP Deputy Information Officer at Sweat & Crawford, who will talk about his experiences in putting together a successful VDI deployment. So I welcome Travis to this webinar.
Thanks, David.
During the webinar, please feel free to enter any questions that you would like to get answered. We will have a Q&A period at the end of our initial presentation. Our presentation will be set up such that I'll give some background on VDI and who xangati is. Then Travis will talk about his experiences, and then we'll have a full Q&A. For those of you who do not know who xangati is, xangati has been was founded in 2007, and we provide performance monitoring and analysis for virtualized environments, whether they are VDI or server virtualization or virtual app environments where you publish apps to mobile devices and etc. We've got 7 patents to our technology and have deployed pretty much in over 300, close to 400 customers worldwide, and our freemium product has over 10,000 downloads. We have partnerships, as you can imagine, with all the major vendors, and our goal is to really make it easy for you to visualize the issues you're having in your infrastructure, analyze that information, and provide remediation recommendations. We tie that information about the infrastructure and the intelligence we gain back to the end user experience, to assure that end user experience, and to provide agile IT, and we call that application aware infrastructure intelligence, and that's the goal of what xangati provides. So when you're looking at a virtualized deployment, there's really 3 different things you need. When you're looking at your physical environment and trying to get to a virtualized environment, you need assessment, things that help you determine what are the best candidates, what's the likely candidates that can move from a P2V environment. You want planning tools that allow you to forecast over multiple years what kind of infrastructure I have, what kind of demand, try to guess and make your best guess estimates on how much you have to invest in your infrastructure and where you need to invest in your infrastructure, and an assurance where once you've deployed the pilot as well as moving into the full deployment, how do you assure that you've met the SLAs and the performance levels that are necessary? How do you do quick root cause analysis to understand and uncover problems and quickly and effectively? What I like to say is, how do I do triage as opposed to post-mortem? And different tools are needed for those different tasks. xangati very much focuses on the assurance end of this spectrum, as well as providing some tools so that you can do planning based on actual usage of your product as opposed to crystal ball kind of forecasts. So one of the things that I thought we would do before we get deeper into it is get an understanding of everybody and what stage they're at with desktop virtualization. So we'll do a quick vote, audience vote right now, to see where everybody is in their desktop virtualization projects. So please vote on what your projects are, and then we can move forward from there. I'll give it a little time here. I won't use any Jeopardy music or anything like that, but just give you 15, 20 seconds to vote, and we'll get an idea of where everybody ended up. So we have a kind of interesting vote that's starting to appear. We have, a third of everybody have deployed virtual desktops, and about 20% are kind of in the process of planning or piloting, and more than 50% don't have any plans, and apparently are here to interest to learn more about what desktop virtualization is and how, what are the pitfalls and challenges. So it'll be interesting we have a good mix, and so we'll try to address the needs of both audiences. So if you look at VDI deployments and you look at some of the pitfalls that happen in there, there's a number of things that come up, and there's, to solve and overcome those pitfalls, you have to start thinking about things differently. For those of you that have done traditional desktop, laptop support and think that ghosting images and redoing images, it's very tactical. Actually, a VDI deployment is much more strategic. You're really deploying an enterprise app, and because you're deploying that enterprise app, you need to look at it from a kind of a different perspective. And one of the things you need to do is visualize what's happening in your entire environment, but look at it from a real-time perspective, because there's a lot of things that can happen. The networking can change, the storage loads can change. There are a lot of things that can change in real time that require you to understand what's happening in the end-to-end solution. The other thing is you really need high fidelity, and what high fidelity talks about is the ability to measure that not on a 15-minute basis or a 20-minute basis, but more on a second-by-second basis, so that you can see transitory issues. Because as you move to a virtualized environment where things are shared, you tend to have different objects, different desktops, causing storms and contentions that come and go very quickly. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Say there's an all-hands meeting at a given company, and once the all-hands meeting, all 5,000 employees go back to their desktop and boot up back into the system. That'll cause very quickly what's called a boot storm, and will cause issues for that short period of time on logins of everybody. And so you'll find that these short performance storms cause end-user performance issues, but they're very transitory. The other thing is you need to understand the end-to-end behavior piecewise. What that means is all the way from the desktop user, all the way through to the data store, to the storage subsystem, there are different things that could impact the environment. Third is you want to look at alerting, and how do you have alerting that's self-learned, because you want to know specifically how your environment is working. And as I said, it's not isolated to a single object, a server or a storage device. It's usually the interaction between those things that cause problems. And like anybody who's had cable problems and called the cable company, and then the cable guy came and said, oh, it's okay now, you want to have the ability for end users to submit their tickets and gather information when they're having a problem, so as to accurately understand, because these issues are always transitory. So what do I mean by end-user, end-to-end behavior piecewise? What that means is clients and users on those clients will complain of things like slow connections or lost connections, or it takes long to log into applications, or I'm having problems accessing the files, or I'm having problems copying files, they take too long. Because in reality with VDI, it's not happening on the thin client, it's happening in the data center, and the client is just seeing it happen. There's protocols across the entire network. There's desktops on the host. There's the storage and server. Each segment of those things can cause an impact that causes a problem in your VDI deployment. So you really need to have a holistic view across the entire infrastructure to understand where those bottlenecks occur. Is it a bunch of clients that are using a bad network because they're trying to access over a wide area network? Is it a bunch of desktop VMware View or Citrix XenDesktop applications using a common storage subsystem that's causing a bottleneck? There are a number of different ways. So you need to understand the end-to-end behavior, but then understand it on each piece. What's the client doing? What are the protocols in the network, like PCIOP or HDX protocols doing? What are the hosts? What are the storage and networks and the various servers that make it happen? It's much more complex than a simple desktop laptop support that you would have where you're reghosting an image, for instance. So that is what xangati's product does, and I'm going to give a little overview of what xangati's product will do, so that you have the context when Travis talks about what he was facing and how he tried to solve it. But before we do that, I'd like to get an idea, at least from the people who have deployed or are about to currently piloting VDI, how difficult is it for you to discover the root cause of any performance concerns that you've had in your VDI infrastructure? So please cast some votes on how difficult it has been for you to diagnose performance concerns, all the way from not difficult at all the way through to very difficult. So we're seeing some very interesting things. We have a number of people it's not applicable because we know they haven't deployed yet. But everyone apparently has some form of problem in trying to find root cause analysis for their performance in a VDI environment. So I think we have a good topic of our presentation together. So I think you'll find some of the things that xangati does, and then some of the experiences that Travis is going to talk about, to be very valuable for you. Actually, let me flip back to that slide. So, as I said, what xangati does is in real time, on a second-by-second, live and continuous basis, we gather information from the entire infrastructure and take metrics all the way from the hypervisor, the virtual desktop software, the network, your application delivery controller, and gather all that information and display it in real time and correlate that information so that you can see when contention storms are happening. All that stuff is rolled up into a single performance health index score. In this case, in the graphic, it's 100 and it's green. But as you start to experience performance issues, that would turn yellow and eventually red. But more importantly, when alerts occur, we can automatically take recordings of all the information from your infrastructure and allow you to have the ability to play that back and do an analysis. So when things are going wrong and everybody's in the war room trying to figure out what's the problem and trying to do triage, this screen and the information we gather helps to accomplish that. So that, like I said, we take the data from the entire infrastructure and we show it in a VDI view. We also have dashboards that can do a virtual server infrastructure view and a virtual app view. In the case you might have Citrix XenApp deploying published apps to a Citrix receiver. We also have the ability to make custom dashboards called My Dashboards. So say you have a given hospital and you want to track the login in that given hospital because you manage only that hospital, or you want to understand the login health of all the doctors in that hospital because they're the critical resource. You can select what you want to put and track as a customizable pool of objects to monitor, and that aggregated performance view, the drill down for those individual objects are customized for that single dashboard, and we call that My Dashboard. We also have the ability of what we call visual trouble tickets. As I mentioned before, there are times when someone calls you up and says, I've had a problem with my login at 11 a.m. every day. And then you go and you look at the moment and everything is fine. And it becomes very difficult to diagnose what's going on. Visual trouble tickets allow when an end user has a problem to just go to a simple URL, enter information into a web page, and it initiates a trouble ticket that also initiates a recording of all the customer activity that was going on at that moment that trouble ticket was issued. So now you have the details to allow you to go diagnose that problem when the end user is experiencing that problem, as opposed to trying to guess after the fact from logs or make logical guesses on what's happening based on, what the client or the customer in your end user is saying. This is what I was doing at the time, kind of thing. And so visual trouble tickets work very well for both diagnosis and then after the fact for proof of results, because you can have them issue later on the similar trouble tickets if there's problems that happen later on. So visual trouble tickets is a great way for you to do remote site troubleshooting and gain access and avoid the aforementioned cable user problem, so to speak. So that kind of gives you a kind of overview of the idea of application-aware infrastructure intelligence and taking all of the information that you gather from the entire infrastructure and applying it to the end user experience of your VDI users. And it's equally important for server virtualization and published app users as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Travis Conley, who works for Sweat and Crawford, who has a very extensive VDI deployment and has used our solution to help him provide that end-to-end performance management view to ensure end-user SLAs.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate the intro. Let me give everybody a real quick overview of myself and what our company does, just to give you a little perspective. We are a global insurance wholesaler, so we work with businesses. We don't work with individuals. We're in a environment of about 1,500 employees globally, spread out over around 17 countries, of extremely high-intensity salespeople. Think of your kind of stockbroker type people, right? So very little tolerance for slowness and downtime, because in the end, if we're slow, if we're not responsive, it's costing them money, and that's not a good thing for anybody. So my responsibility is for North, Central, and South America. In North America, we are 100% virtualized server and desktop side. We use xangati to monitor the entire environment. We have other tools as well to augment for special cases. But overall, xangati has kind of become our primary monitoring tool in our virtual environment. We are spread across a lot of offices, a lot of time zones. It's not rare for us to have employees working at 2 and 3 in the morning, and they don't care that we're trying to sleep if their system's slow for some reason. So xangati has been a great tool for that. Our current scenario is a little different than this. This is kind of a snapshot of what we looked like before xangati. And the reason we engaged with xangati was we were 100% VDI. This was about 3.5, 4 years ago when we engaged with them. We were seeing some performance issues, like a lot of people who were early adopters of VDI. We, I guess now about 7 years ago, implemented our VDI solution because it fit our needs, right? VDI doesn't always, it's not an end-all, be-all. Not going to be a sales guy and tell you that. I'm a pretty horrible sales guy, actually, but it fit our needs very well. However, the VDI deployment was shoehorned into an environment that wasn't designed to be a VDI environment. So anybody who is familiar with VDI knows that it takes a specific design, right? You need your storage designed properly, your processing and memory designed properly, your switching right. And we knew we had problems. We had slowness issues, we had latency, we had video issues, we would have, timeouts, odd application errors. Very stable platform, but at the same time, we had issues that were causing us a lot of grief, and we couldn't put our finger on it. We would, make guesses. We would try certain things, but most of the fixes that we knew we needed to do were major capital investments. You see, we had a pair of older CX4 EMC arrays at that point in time. For what they were great arrays. However, we knew that they weren't designed properly for our storage needs. But we couldn't show anybody that, right? So the COO of the global group, if I was to go into him and say, well, we're starving for IO, he would, say, I don't know what you're talking about. Come back with something that matters and something that means something to me. So we engaged with xangati to try and locate the data that we needed to show our to show our problems. xangati is able to do that in a couple ways because they reside at the VM layer inside of VMware, and they're able to see the entire vSwitch. They can see storage I/O, they can see network I/O, they can see CPU and RAM. They can see all the way down into the Windows VM because if you almost think of it like a port mirror, like when you're running Wireshark, right? It's very similar to that in the case that I can see everything that's going on with every VM, whether it's VDI, whether it's a SQL server, whether it's an Exchange server, an AD server. I can see everything that's going on inside that VM without impacting the performance. And because of the way they record the data, I can actually go back in time and say, okay, what did this box look like yesterday at 1:45, and what does it look like today at 1:45? Even though yesterday I didn't know there was a problem, and that's something we've had never been able to do before. Typically it's, well, this box is really slow. Wonder what it looked like yesterday. I wonder what it looked like a month ago. Well, now we can actually roll back in time and go, oh, hey, look, let's play this back. Yesterday, I was only using, 200 I/O on this SQL box. Today, I'm hitting 350 I/O on the right side. Well, what's going on? Something changed. So we're able to do that now because of this tool. The xangati DVR, I call it. I don't know what their technical term for it is from a marketing perspective, but we call it our DVR. We're able to go back in time and replay that stuff, compare, contrast, look for changes in applications that may have happened from a patch or an update or whatever that is. And that's on the VM side as well as the VDI side. So it helps across the entire stack. And it actually goes all the way up to the host side too. So now I can see, okay, somebody added a new VM on this host and it's choking out my host side CPU. Let's see what's causing that. Let's dig into that and move it to another host. It's an impressive tool. It's a unique tool. We looked a long time for a tool to do what we wanted to do. Once we implemented xangati, we were able to go back to our CFO and our global COO and say, look, here's why these VDI sessions are slow. Yesterday you had 1,200 concurrent users. and at this point in time, you had a huge boot storm. We don't have enough I/O, and here's a pretty little graph and chart that the C-level folks love to have. And once you show that to them, the sales the sales pitch becomes a whole lot easier. When I went to them and said, okay, I want to buy some new EMC VNX arrays, and I need $1 million to do that, I was able to show them a graph going, okay, here's why, and here's why this will fix the solution, right? Not, well, my gut says this, and we really feel like. No, there's no feel like. Here's your hard proof, and then I can go back after we implement it and go, okay, look, here's your environment today. Here's where it was a month ago. Now we can show you that your capital investment paid off. It was worth that investment, and it just makes everybody a lot happier. For us, it's been kind of a double-edged sword. Our solution is stable enough now and performs well enough now that we have become an internal cloud hosting group for is what we call ourselves, because I guess we're marketing ourselves somewhat, but we're becoming kind of an internal cloud host for the rest of our company. So we're taking on offices and companies outside of the North American footprint and hosting their VDI solutions from our North American data centers. And again, through the xangati tool, I can tell, when I've got a guy in Argentina who's complaining about an issue, I can tell him with 100% certainty and show him, well, it's because you're on a really bad connection in Starbucks that's got 200 millisecond latency. Move to the office where you've got 70 or 80 millisecond latency, and your problem will be fine. And while they're not happy about moving from Starbucks, they understand, and it makes sense for these folks, and they're happy because of it. Another benefit we've got is we've also taken on some support for VDI in our Hong Kong and Singapore offices. However, we're not staffing ourselves 24/7. These folks are more contract type labor, so they don't necessarily warrant having a live support person all the time. However, we do want to be able to fix their problems. So with the virtual trouble ticket and with the DVR functionality, when somebody in one of these offices has a problem, they start a virtual trouble ticket case that logs the help desk ticket with our global help desk, and when they come in at 7 a.m. Eastern, they've got a recording of that VDI issue sitting on their desk. They can play it back, they can diagnose it, troubleshoot it, just like they were sitting in the session with the user. And it's become extremely valuable to our folks, and allowed us to really get a whole lot more value out of our staff by supporting people outside of North America without having to add headcount. It's been a real bonus and benefit to our group. So that's kind of the long and the short for us. Kind of the bullet points. We pinpoint issues in our environment, helped us build our business case. It definitely helps us ongoing with management and monitoring. I know ahead of time, well in advance, when I'm going to have to add another host to our environment, because I can see the trending, right? I can see, hey, this office is starting to, add some headcount. We're seeing performance come down. I see, I need some additional I/O because, xangati can tell me exactly the I/O that's going on. Okay, I need to add some spindles to my SAN. It's very easy, and you can't see me, but I'm air quoting that. It's very easy, right, to now get that information. Whereas not only was it difficult before, we really couldn't get it at all. We couldn't give a definitive, here's what's happening. Now we can do it, and it's relatively simple. Our help desk guys rely on it extremely, to an extreme amount every day. It allows the help desk guys to interface with my engineering staff and be able to come to my engineering staff with, all right, this guy over here is really slow. Here's what we think's going on. Not just a simple, hey, his VM's slow, we rebooted it. Well, that doesn't help anybody. Let's actually troubleshoot it. So now that stuff is happening. Everybody is a lot happier because of it. including our internal IT folks. We're able to do that root cause analysis. And one thing we haven't talked about that's on this slide is there's a feature called Storm Tracker that is kind of that preventative help you look for things that are coming. The name of it kind of tells you what it is, Storm Tracker, right? So you're looking for hot spots, or you're looking for, hey, some preventative, it looks like we're going to have an IO issue over here. xangati can use their trending data to build those storm tracking reports for you. It's been really key to our support and our ability to continue growing our environment on the VDI side as well as the server side. So that's kind of my spiel. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen and let you go from there.
Great, super. Thanks for the details. xangati, we have a free trial download that you can get by simply just going to our website, and you see the URL. By the way, this presentation will be available for download on BrightTalk, so you'll be able to download the entire presentation. And now I think we'll transition to Q&A. You have the opportunity to submit questions for us to answer at this point. We have about 10 to 15 minutes remaining before the webinar is scheduled to end, as well as you can also rate the webinar and provide comments afterwards. So please submit any questions you have for myself or Travis. We'd be happy to answer in the time we have left. So please feel free to ask any kind of questions that we have. So let me see what we've got going here. So Travis, we have one here. What has been the biggest benefit with your VDI deployment for the organization?
For us, VDI was a key way to deploy our apps, right? Like I mentioned earlier, VDI is not for everybody, right? If you're shoehorning it into an environment where it doesn't make sense, everybody's going to be upset with you because everybody wants their own desktop locally, right? That's your best case. We're taking that away from them and giving them another version of that, right? We're giving them a desktop in our data center. However, the benefits for us outweigh what you give up in VDI. We have now extremely heavy applications that, for instance, our imaging applications and our broking applications that transfer massive amounts of data between the application and the databases. That's just not doable, especially over high latency links or slow links over the wire. And a lot of our applications are in-house developed applications that we can't leverage some kind of an offload server or things like that. So having VDI where your desktop is physically 10 gig connected to a database server that's a half a foot away is a huge benefit. The performance that these guys can see now when they go out to an office in the middle of nowhere, and it's just like they're sitting on a 100 meg network connection sitting in the office. It's a big deal for these guys, and it really impresses our clients as well that our sales force has access to internal and external data at their fingertips at all times. So a big part of our staff now carry Chromebooks. They're throwaway devices. They're dirt cheap. I don't care if you leave it in a cab. There's no data loss. It's been great for our guys.
Yeah, my impression that I've seen is that many people deploy VDI because they have regulatory requirements, like in healthcare, or they're concerned about security.
Yeah, and that is a big piece of it. It's not an end-all be-all for security, right? It doesn't fix everything. You can still have somebody screenshotting something and walking it out. There's still issues, right? It doesn't fix everything for you, but it is a great way to get your hands around it. If you've already got a good desktop management strategy, if you've already got other controls in place, it will definitely help you augment, keeping that data inside your walls, and help ease those audits. Especially if you're Fed regulated or HIPAA or something like that, it'll make those audits a whole lot easier.
Great. So I have another question from you, and not surprising considering our poll had a lot of people thinking about what is VDI and where to go. What recommendation would you make for someone starting to approach implementing a VDI project?
I'll be honest. That I think it might not be what you think. My biggest recommendation would be to know your applications. Right? If you can spend a fortune on storage and tools and processing power, but if you don't understand how your applications work and their needs, and how your staff work, right? How they work with that application, your VDI project is going to fail. You're going to roll out something that people are going to hate, and that's going to be a resume generator for you. You're going to be hated real quick. If VDI doesn't work for your staff and it's not adopted from the top down, that hey, this is the right solution because it helps our people get access to the applications and data they need, then your project's going to be a failure no matter how much money you spend on it.
Makes sense. Because in the end, it's end user experience that is.
It really is. I mean, that's the only reason we exist, right? We're here to give these guys the tools they need to bring in the money that funds our department. So if we're not doing what's best for them, we've got an issue.
So let me see what else we got. Here's a good one. So this is actually for me, I think. Can xangati scale, and if it does, how do you accomplish your real-time functionality? Well, yeah. I'll give it a thing, and then Travis, you can amplify wherever possible. That's a good question because many monitoring and management solutions, may work well at a small environment but not scale large. Our largest VDI deployments are well over 10,000 seats, and we still gather all of the information associated with all the virtual desktops and the infrastructure that impacts that. And it's not only the consumptive information, but also the interactional information, the measurement of the interactions between the objects, which is very important for contention storm and storm tracker. Those interactions tend to be 10x what the objects are. And the way we accomplish that is by not having any agents or probes in the environment. So we gather the flow information and the information from the data sources that are available in the various devices in real time, and then gather that into an in-memory data structure that can take all the information as an extensible from different data sources, synchronize it, timestamp it, store it, visualize it, analyze it on a second-by-second basis, and then over time archive it for those valuable reports that Travis talked about. So the real secret sauce is our ability to do that real-time to scale on a second-by-second basis, and it's accomplished because of the use of no agents and probes and our in-memory architecture that allows us to gather that information.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I really would say on that is you almost end up with a better solution the bigger you grow, right? Like any data mapping software, right? The more points of data you got, the better your overall view is. So as you start out smaller, say maybe you're doing a POC of a VDI deployment, you'll start getting great data, right? And you can start using that to build metrics to figure out how big you can scale. But the more you add to it, the more data you pull back, the more you can really do your predictive analysis. And because, like you said, there's no agents out there. And my analogy to port mirror kind of comes back into play again, right? You're just taking everything and looking at it as it goes through. You're not manipulating it. You're not slowing it down. You're not having to offload it. You're just watching it as it goes by, and you got a really fast set of eyes that can read everything as it goes by.
So I agree, and then this question is a logical follow-up to that. Explain, please, again, why it's important to gather information from all parts of the infrastructure on an end-to-end basis. Let me talk about that, and then Travis, you can provide some commentary. Basically, when you kind of look at a VDI deployment, as Travis had said, it's the end user experience that matters. And if you have your your silos of information, my network information, my server information, my data store information, my virtualization information, and I only have that information from that specific perspective, I can understand how things are consumed in their little silos. But typically the problem is not how well is that little silo performing, but the interaction of multiple desktops all going to the same Zen desktop server at the same time, causing a boot storm that's causing problems on your data store. And it's the interactions between those things that really cause the end user behavior issues, the performance issues. And consequently, because of that, you need to look across the entire infrastructure in order to really diagnose and track the issues from what may be a non-persistent user on a given device that's happy on one device, but then the doctor moves to a different location and suddenly the device doesn't work well because he has a bad network connection and stuff like that. And it can roll all the way through the infrastructure.
I'll expand on that a little bit in a different way. And the example I'm going to give you is what caused our CFO to come to me and sign the PO for xangati. We were demoing it. We had it, fully deployed to our environment. I loved it. My staff loved it, but we had yet to really say, hey, this is, we're doing this. We started having some issues with in our environment with some desktop profiles that were just completely becoming non-responsive, and it was impacting 400 or 500 people at a time in our environment. And we were tracking it down. We actually had EMC on site looking at our storage. We had trying to figure it out. We looked at it for weeks, and it was sporadic. It would happen usually mid-afternoon for us. It would happen for about 20 minutes, and then it would go away. We wouldn't see it again until the next day. Nobody could find it. None of our other monitoring tools, our EMC-specific monitoring tools weren't seeing it. Our network tools weren't seeing it. Everything looked okay. Even inside the Windows OS, everything looked okay. Because xangati can see the entire stack, we were able to go kind of last minute. We're like, well, wonder if xangati is going to be some use in this. We bring it up. We start digging in. 10 or 15 minutes later, we realize, because we can DVR it, we found a single user, and I hate admitting this, but we had a user who had a 14 gigabyte PST file that he was loading up every afternoon to pull out some archive data. We have a policy against it. We have all kind of things against PSTs, but they do them anyway. Anyway, that one PST file was stored on his desktop, which was also on the same redirected file share as these 400, 500 users were on. His PST file was taking down half of our environment every afternoon. And without xangati, we never could have found it. We finally were able to find it. Long story short, the problem's dealt with, and we own xangati. So it's having that ability to see everything and see those interactions and replay those interactions is just a critical piece.
That was a great story there, Travis. Looks like we're run out of time. It's amazing how quickly this webinar flew by. I really appreciate your time, Travis, for coming and providing some insights on your environment.
Sure,
and,
not a problem.
Okay, please. And then also, I want to thank everybody for attending the webinar. The webinar will be available and taped, and you can listen to it again, as well as downloadable. And please, if you're interested in our solution at xangati, the little commercial pitches, come to our website. We have a free trial program in which you can try it in your own environment, tailored to your own environment. So thank you, everybody, for attending the webinar, and I wish you all a very wonderful day and enjoy the weekend that's coming up.